Welcome back into the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, everybody. This is a practice report, rapid reaction camp report. Still haven't quite given it a proper name, Tim. That's Tim May, by the way.
How about aircraft carrier landing? I like that part.
Well, we're in an aircraft carrier here. This building is massive, but
yes.
I am Spencer Holbrook. Of course, you all know Tim May, 40 years in the Ohio State beat at least. Tim, new defensive coordinator, only 1 year at Ohio State. Ryan Day entering year 4 at Ohio State.
As the head coach.
Yeah, got to talk to
year 6 is being here, yeah.
Time flies, especially with Ryan Day.
Yeah,
6
crazy.
years is a long time to be here. But he's locked in for his 4th season as the head coach. And we got to talk to Knowles and Day both today here on a busy day inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. Tim, biggest takeaway from speaking to both of them? I know it's going to be on defense. I know it's going to be about Jim Knowles. But go ahead and tell the people.
Well, it could be either one. So I'll just go. You threw it out there. I'll bite that hook. The fact that they've got their cornerbacks back in a relatively healthy situation is big news, as Jim Knowles even pointed out. Now that you've got your full complement of cornerbacks, meaning Cam Brown has obviously been on a pitch count. He's almost been on a pitch count since he's been here, but he's back at that one corner. Denzel Burke has been banged up off and on through camp, but they feel like that today during practice they had him back. Jordan Hancock, the same thing. He's had a pulled hamstring dealing with. Those are sometimes slow to heal, as you know, and you have to just let it take its course. He indicated that maybe Hancock might be ready to go, at least by the season. Yeah. Jalen Johnson, though, has stepped in and had some great time there. And you got to figure Kim Martinez, man, had to make his presence known when he got flopped over there to take up some of the slack from a personnel standpoint. So you got the gist from Jim Knowles that he feels really good at this moment in camp about what he's going to have available a week and a half from now in this season opener against Notre Dame. And I think that's as big a news as anything else coming out today.
Well, it's funny, Tim, because everybody asked about the depth of the cornerback spot and how healthy the cornerback position is, but nobody's really asked the entire training camp about how good the cornerback's going to be. Everybody's asking how good the safeties are going to be, who's the rotation of the safeties, what the defensive line looks like, if there's a rotation going to happen at linebacker, and then those guys are just out on the island, not just minding their own. That unit has a chance to be really special in my mind, and I think it's pretty telling that everyone just kind of assumes that position is going to be just fine, even with the depth concerns.
Well, here's what you know. You know Denzel Burke is a superior talent.
Yes.
I mean, we saw that last year as the year went on. Just the confidence he plays with as a freshman last year, a first-year freshman. Cam Brown, we've all seen his ability when he's healthy.
Yep.
I know, but I mean, that's like right now, if you're asking me right now, Jim Knowles feels really good about that complement of cornerbacks. That's coming from him, not coming from me, not coming from you, which I think he thinks Cam Brown. But I'm telling you what, Jalen Johnson, boy, you've gotten JK, you've gotten all kinds of great reports about him as this camp has progressed, for example. So that's the silver lining of having some guys maybe banged up and stuff. And we all know Jordan Hancock's ability. If in fact he ends up being healthy, you don't want to push a hamstring situation until you really maybe have to, and they would rather that be as close to 100% back as possible. Adam Stewart, is one of the great. I told him the other day my left knee was bothering me. Could you at least give me some words of advice? But he's been working on these guys, obviously, along with Sean Barnhouse and these other guys. I mean, they feel really good about the progress physically of those guys, and that's what stands out.
Yeah, and the cornerback room is interesting to me because, like you said, Denzel and Cam Brown are both the guys there in that room. But Denzel Burke, I think in the spring, was asked about Jalen Johnson and Jordan Hancock, and he said there's some dogs. And if we equate that to an old saying from Ohio State past that you love to bring up, if a dog's going to bite,
he'll bite you as a pup. And that was John Cooper.
J.K. Johnson has not played much yet. I think he would still be considered a pup.
But I like him, and I like his attitude.
He's got the chance to bite now.
Yeah.
As one of those pups. I don't want to keep that analogy going the whole show, so we'll switch from cornerbacks.
By the way, I like the attitude of all 4 of those guys that I considered the top 4 going into camp, including Jordan Hancock. There's a confidence with all those guys. I mean, Cam Brown, you've rarely seen him enough times to really get that, but he really is a confident sort. Yep. And that's what you want in this defense, this 4-2-5 defense. Those corners are so vital. I know every position is, but those corners are very vital for you to be able to play games, Jim Knowles to play games the way he wants to with those other 9 players. And so we'll see how it goes going into next week.
And let's not sell Jair Brown short. He's made a lot of progress this camp to show, that if they're going to need all of those corners in the room, Jair Brown can be, a guy. Does he struggle if you put him on the field against Notre Dame? Maybe, but Denzel Burke played as a true freshman opening night against Minnesota last year, and he really took off. And so, those top four are settled, but I'm not going to just, discount Jair Brown early in his career.
Yeah.
As we move over.
I wasn't doing that.
Yeah, no.
And I'm
in
telling
general.
you what, I'm not forgetting Cam Martinez. They've got to figure out a way to get Cam Martinez on the field one way or the other, in my opinion. He is that elite of a football player. So go ahead.
Well, he's a corner, but he's also a safety, and that's where I was going to go next to him, is the safety room. A lot of talk about the backup safeties, it seems like. And one of the weird things to me...
Who are the backup safeties?
Yeah, I mean...
Who are the starting safeties? Yeah.
One of the weird things to me is that Jim Knowles has made it very clear that those safeties, he doesn't like a lot of rotation in that safety room. But every time we talk to Jim Knowles, you get the opposite sense, because you know what Josh Proctor brings. You know what Ronnie Hickman brings. He likes Tanner McAllister because he knows exactly what he's going to get with him on the field. He doesn't talk about any of those three guys. It's always Lathan Ransom, who is the first two-time winner of the Silver Bullet of the Day this training camp.
Yes.
He talks about Cam Martinez, who is coming on as a playmaker no matter where you line him up. He talks about Court Williams as a leader who can play a linebacker role and a safety role. But those three starters, presumed starters, just don't get brought up. And that's the interesting thing is, I think this defense is at almost like a crossroads before they even hit the field, because this philosophy of Jim Knowles, and it makes me laugh a little bit, this philosophy that Jim Knowles has of not rotating safeties comes to a head when you have five or six guys.
You know why you have that philosophy? Is because at Oklahoma, and he even alluded to that again today without saying it straight up, at Oklahoma State, you were probably limited in terms of that next group, from the standpoint of being able to step up and play, of being highly sought prospects when they were being recruited, et cetera, brought guys along. But, you were just so fired up that you had three guys that could play those. Now you've got like six guys. He almost glows about the depth that's available to him now. That wasn't available to him, even a year ago. And that was one of the elite defenses in the country, no doubt about it. Turn on the video, you'll see them playing at an elite level almost every night. You'll see an alum from that group, Malcolm Rodriguez, this linebacker who is basically a 6th-round draft pick of the Detroit Lions, and he is just like cutting it loose in the Detroit Lions camp. That's the kind of like players that he developed. I'm talking about Jim Knowles, and if you watch that Hard Knocks, like I'm saying on HBO, you'll see him. But the bottom line is, he's fired up. And the other thing about it is, I mean, as much as he keeps saying that, he kept talking about Court Williams. Well, he didn't talk about it incessantly, but he brought up again about Court Williams, is that quasi-linebacker, quasi-safety, who you can leave on the field to throw different defenses at them. So just reading between the lines there, he's got Court Williams on his brain, meaning Court Williams is probably going to play some, if not a lot. So I'm so curious about watching this defense on September 3rd. It's going to be just cool to see how they do mix and match.
Yeah, and you talk about the depth at the position. The 5th or 6th safety at Oklahoma State might be a 3-star guy from Ada, Oklahoma. The 5th or 6th safety on this Ohio State roster was a top 50 overall player from St. John Bosco in California.
Yeah.
That tells you, and that's no offense whatsoever to the talent at Oklahoma State. They obviously do a great job with their defenses, but it is just a different animal, and he's fully aware of what he's dealing with now. The other thing that I would take away from what Jim Knowles had to say today is this defense is 75% installed, and I'm not really sure, Tim, if it's going to get any higher than that at this point. It's interesting that a lot of guys, and Ryan Day used to say with Justin Fields that 70 or 80% of the offense was installed. And that's it.
What does that mean?
Dwayne Haskins
my big question is always, what does that mean?
Dwayne Haskins only had 70 or 80% of that playbook in 2018 to work with. So Jim Knowles says he's got 75%, and he doesn't want to go any higher than that. He wants to keep a couple things tucked in the back of his head, as he pointed to.
Sure.
He'd like to be able to unveil a couple things that not even the other coaches on the coaching staff know about.
Yeah, but the approach is just, don't be stupid. Meaning, 75% is a tremendous amount, number one, to have installed over an 8-month run, number one. And number two, man, you've got elite athletes now you're dealing with. He knows that. Elite talent, in my opinion, they do have elite talent. They had elite talent last year, and for all kinds of reasons, it didn't come together except for the second half of the Rose Bowl. But the point is, even though they've caught on, he's been really impressed by the way these guys have caught on to this defense. Don't overexert, meaning don't go too crazy just to be a genius. You know what I mean? Just go with what you got. And 75% is a lot because you can still throw. The great thing about this Jim Knowles defense is, like he said, he's not really into throwing a new wrinkle in every week. Like in the good old days when you're playing against teams that pretty much you knew what they're going to do offensively and you could kind of tweak things. But the great thing about this defense is in one sideline huddle, he can tweak some things that can make this defense look totally different. And it's only because one or two guys are doing something a little bit different from one series to the next. And that's Ryan Day will tell you, that's the beauty of this defense.
Well, and it's almost reminiscent. It's almost reminiscent, Tim, of the way we see in the coaches clinic every year out here on the field in April when Ryan Day talks about, and he gives us the same presentation every year because it's so important to the offense. He puts those run plays and those pass plays in buckets, and then they choose which buckets they use for each game. And not every bucket is going to be used in every game. Well, now Jim Knowles can kind of do that. It kind of reminds me of that, where he's not going to use all 75% of that every game, but he might only use 35% of it against Toledo, but he might use 55 against Notre Dame.
But a great example, yeah.
And so, you can kind of toy with that and bring things out in layers for each opponent. And it just kind of goes to show that, Ryan Day found the right guy in complementing, the way he even coaches that offense and the way Jim Knowles seems to be coaching this defense.
Sure he did. I mean, the proof will be in the pudding. I mean, we're sitting here talking about.
It's become a favorite saying of Ryan's this fall.
But he's right. I mean, we can talk about this all we want. We can look at what Oklahoma State did, especially last year, which I called the real climax of his stay at Oklahoma State was last year. It was amazing to watch that defense play because you got to figure it was almost 100% installed.
Yeah.
But
by year 4.
But the point is Notre Dame has already seen that defense. I brought that up with them, and but also Jim Knowles has already seen how Notre Dame dealt with that defense
and countered it.
The flip side of that is Notre Dame had a pretty good first half in that Fiesta Bowl. Not a very good second half against that defense. I'm talking about their offense against Jim Knowles' defense. So there's got to be a little bit of a feeling there of maybe confidence is not the correct term, but of an assuredness that there are some things they can throw at Notre Dame that are going to give it problems. We're a week and a half out. And that to me is going to be the interesting thing. And, it's funny that when Ryan Day really went after Jim Knowles, they didn't know they were playing Notre Dame in a bowl game. And, of course, he didn't get to coach in that game. He did it in absentia, so to speak. But I don't know. To me, everything is kind of like building, and you and I've talked about this for a really grand interest for this defense, this Jim Knowles defense. Will it now deliver, or will everybody step on each other's lines? Kind of like I do to you sometimes.
Well, I don't mind at all. And, I did call it last week in a headline and in a story, a grand unveiling of the defense, particularly with that Jack Leo position. They still won't even call it the Leo.
Yeah, now get into that. I mean, isn't that interesting to you?
He's not ready to call it the Leo because he wants the Leo, as he said in the spring, to be the king of the jungle. And nobody's there yet, and so.
Well, his point was that maybe the guy, Jack Sawyer, pardon the expression, but he is the Jack. I mean, he's one of those guys you got to figure practicing at that Jack. It's like they feel really good on 2 out of the 3 things they want that Jack to do, but to get to be the Leo, you got to feel good about all 3. Now, what is that third thing? He didn't give any indication. Like I had Jack on my podcast several weeks ago before camp opened, and I said, man, I said, are you envisioning a pick 6 this year? Like dropping out into the flat and scaring everybody. I mean, it's surprising everyone. And he goes, he hadn't had a pick 6 since his freshman year in high school. So, whether they can get to that aspect, they may not need to get there with this defense. That's just, to me, that's almost like that extra little flapper that you can go to on this defense, which makes it so special in my mind. I really like this defensive design. Well, the main thing they're concerned about going into this opener is going to be lining up right, meaning gap sound, and getting after it up front. That's the reason I'm doing a story later in the week about that's what he wants from that defensive front 4. You can talk about the Leo and the Jack and everything else, but you just want, especially those 2 guys on the inside, just getting after it. Being aggressive, not just sitting there and holding the line, but getting upfield, because that just screws up what an offense wants to do like you wouldn't know.
finally felt like game week in here, Tim. Not quite there yet, but it felt like it because Jim Knowles was asked about Michael Mayer and how to defend the All-American Notre Dame tight end. Seems like they've been planning that for quite a long time now. They've got some plans for that.
You know what I always say, though, right?
The tight end's always open.
The tight end is always open in college. It's always open at every level, especially college football. If they figure that out, man, they really need to patent it.
Yeah, because Mayer is one of the best players, pass catchers, not just Notre Dame players, but he's one of the best pass catchers in the country, regardless of position. So they're going to have a plan for that. A couple other odds and ends. We got some injury updates, obviously at cornerback. We talked about that. Cam Babb probably out for that season opener. A couple weeks, they said.
Yeah, like we reported last week.
Yeah,
he was missing practice, and actually, I think it happened after the Monday practice, after the scrimmage and stuff. But that's too bad. But man, Ryan Day brought up Julian Fleming.
Yeah.
Again, sounds like Julian Fleming might be among that starting three if, in fact, they put 3 wide receivers on the field. We'll see, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, for Cameron Babb, they're going to make sure to take this slowly because they can't risk another injury. He's had 4 ACL tears and a broken leg in the last 6 years.
Yeah.
This is not something that they can just rush back from. I would not expect to see him on the availability. I would expect to see him as unavailable, maybe even game time decision. But to see him playing against Notre Dame, I couldn't really see it happening. But it was good to hear that it was a minor setback and something that they can kind of take their time with.
Here's the thing, though. Let's not, I'm being nice here, let's not oversell Cam Babb anyway, because getting Cam Babb was going to be a bonus,
yes,
in my opinion, for this offense. Their top 3 guys are top 4 receivers right now, including Emeka Egbuka. You know the other 2 are. But Jackson Smith and Jigba. And, of course, Marvin Harrison Jr. They're as good as anybody, a fleet of forwards, anybody in the country. And that's what they're going to be relying on anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, for Cameron, you hope that he can get healthy again. If not, they've got a full platoon of receivers that can get the job done. And we'll be getting the job done here in, I think, about 12 days, 11 and a half days here, Tim, as we wind things down in training camp. Turn to game prep mode at Lettermen Row and inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. That's Tim May. This is Spencer Holbrook. This has been a practice report, rapid reaction, camp update, whatever you want to call it. We're here covering the Buckeyes all season long at Lettermen Row. Make sure you check out the YouTube channel, subscribe to the site, come hang out with us at the Lettermen Lounge on the message board, and we will see you back in here tomorrow.